Rock Lighthouse was spun from a dark day.
Split Rock was born out of a really horrific storm in 1905. It was a really bad November gale, and it caught the shipping industry kind of off guard.
Keeper Hayes Scriven says 29 ships were run aground and more than 24 people killed.
Here at Split Rock, just a half mile north of us, there's a point called Gold Rock Point. And the ship Madeira was being towed by another ship, and it was getting pounded up against Gold Rock Point. And it sunk there, that's where it lies now, but 8 of the 9 crew members did survive, all because of one crewman who jumped across and climbed up the rock face and threw a rope down and saved the remaining crew members. So after that storm, the Ship Carriers Association got together and went to Congress and said, we need another light station somewhere else on the North Shore.
Congress approved $75,000. Construction finally began in 1909, and the light was turned on in July of 1910.
And I think about other lighthouses that I'm familiar with around here, in Grand Marais and Two Harbors, and they don't get the same treatment as Split Rock does.
Yeah.
What is it about this place that is so important to really preserve and pass along the history?
Yeah, the interesting part about Split Rock is when it was built in 1909, 1910, it was in the middle of the wilderness. Like, there was no way to get here except by boat.
Is it fair to call it an icon?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's people have been coming here ever since it was built in 1910, and when you see Split Rock, you know that's Minnesota.
And much of it still runs the way it did more than 100 years ago.
Back in 1910, when the lighthouse was built, the keepers had to come up here and wind the weights every 2 hours. So basically think of the lighthouse as a big grandfather clock. You have a weight system that you pull up, and then as time goes over, gravity pulls those weights back down.
Still, Split Rock employees manually make the lens spin.
What you do is you put the crank on like that, and then you can turn it, and that'll wind the weights up like this. So why don't you, Bailey, do you want to give it a try?
Yep. So
You're gonna crank it that way.
Backward?
Yep, there you go.
Oh, wow, okay. It's my workout for the day.
Yep. So then imagine doing that like 150 times.
Oh my gosh.
Every 2 hours.
Yeah.
To wind those weights up.
I have to use 2 hands.
Yeah. The lens is just an amazing piece of technology and art when you really look at it. And we're still uncovering new things about the site that we didn't know before.
Like this. These blocks of concrete may not look very exciting, but they are illuminating.
We found what we think is where the original derrick was for the lighthouse.
Because building this icon was no small feat.
All of the equipment and all of the materials for the lighthouse were brought up over this cliff. It was a 110-foot cliff, and they would have this big crane essentially go out over the lake, tie onto a boat, bring the gear up.
The discovery sheds new light on this place's past.
We're still finding all of this history on what is a very well-known site.
And it also helps them map out the future.
We're hopefully going to have a nice new overlook here that people will be able to look at and see this, and then we can tie in the early construction of the site and give people a better perspective once again of the marvel that was building the lighthouse. Like, for history lovers and history geeks like myself, this is what we live for. We live to find out this new stuff or rediscover this stuff, and then we want to share it with everyone. Being able to add to the narrative for the site is just one of the coolest things that I'll ever be able to experience.